Welcome to my new series about breaking into cybersecurity. You always might have been tech savvy, you always been interested in technology, and one day you decided that you would like to explore the career in cybersecurity, but you don't know where to start. So I decided to create a video series about expelling some of the myths and some of the tips possibly how to break into cybersecurity and what path I have taken similarly to this in my career, and how potentially how we can explore the path into cybersecurity. I wanted to address the requirement of degrees, potential boot camps, what certification path to take, and how we can be better prepared for first role in the cybersecurity. I took a very similar path myself, and I wanted to share some tips because there's a lot of myths surrounded cybersecurity. There's various companies that provide training, advertising lucrative careers, but it's not always is as it's showcased around the industry. So I wanted to show some of the ways and some of the tips how hopefully it can help you to get into the cybersecurity industry and start this wonderful career that I have started, and get some of the benefits of the community and some of the various programs that are there to support your journey into cybersecurity. So firstly, I wanted to address formal education versus self-taught path. I like to see, and I think it's an encouraging fact, that less and less of the cybersecurity jobs require degrees. I don't think degree is only and the best path into cybersecurity. I myself only recently got a degree after I have been in the industry for a number of years. There's also various boot camps that can help, but they might not be cost effective. There's also these boot camps advertising some amazing salaries that are there in cybersecurity, but normally at the entry level, the salaries are not what they are painted to be. So I started myself on a self-taught path, and I think self-taught path allows you the flexibility, allows you to go at your own pace, allows you to pick and choose when you can do self-development, when you can do the courses, how you're going to plan your self-development. It allows you to be a lot more flexible depending on your circumstances. Also, self-training can be tailored to your prior experience. So depending where you come from, what industry you come from, you might have been working in IT before, or you might have no IT experience at all. So you can tailor the starting point of where you're going to start and how you're going to progress into cybersecurity depending on your previous experience and previous skills. And self-training can be considerably cheaper. I think we are at this age of technology and information that like has never been before. We have so many courses on YouTube, so many different platforms that showcase different training material, different training examples that can be leveraged for you to level up your career and your knowledge. So it's amazing to see so many books that are helping, so many people are leveraging up this community spirit. I've been mentoring juniors for a number of years, and I believe I have some wisdom to share with you guys how we can best approach the path into cybersecurity, and share some of the tips that help my mentees to gain their first role. I think that what really separates the self-taught training as well, we might not always have time, we might have other competing priorities, we might be in full-time education or full-time work, and how we can merge our career into cybersecurity. We all have bills to pay. Not everybody can stop working for 2 years and get, or 2 or even 3 years to get a degree and then pivot into cybersecurity. So I think self-taught path is the great way forward, and I will be going through this series about how we can level up our careers based on the self-taught education, and how we can leverage the material that is out there, leverage the platforms that can help us elevate our skills. We will discuss how we can leverage our networks, how to elevate and how to prepare for the first role. So the first video is essentially mainly dedicated to the skills and education, and then we'll talk about what's going to happen in the further series as we move forward. So where do we start? Self-taught journey. How do we start it? I think the key point, as I mentioned earlier, is to assess your technical expertise. It's a key point to address how savvy you are with technology, whether you understand how systems and software operate, whether you have any IT background. That will determine your starting point. The key point what I'm trying to say is, I see a lot of people who want to break into cybersecurity, and they try and jump a few steps and go further down the line, missing the basics. I truly believe that if you want a successful career, you have to address the basics. So start with something like a course called CompTIA A+. So CompTIA A+ is a course that split into two domains. You have hardware and software. It teaches you how systems are put together, you know, what's a CPU, what's RAM, how these systems work together, how we can, you know, replace and work with these systems. It teaches you the fundamentals of how systems operate, because how can we secure systems if we don't know innately how they work? It also addresses the software. It talks about various operating systems, from Windows to Linux to Mac. There is an abundance of information in that course that can start building the fundamentals and the grounding material. I think you know, I'm not sponsored by any of these courses, but I think if we're talking about self-taught journey, we're normally trying to be as cost effective as possible. So my main source of development always been Udemy courses, and Udemy courses are great because they're very, very cheap. Normally every couple of weeks they do a sale. So my two favorite courses on A+ will be run by either Jason Dion or Mike Myers. So you can guys jump on Udemy and have a look. Normally these courses sort of vary and range between 10 to 13 pounds, which I think is equivalent to about 15-20 bucks. They're very cheap. Also, you have one of the trailblazers in education, Professor Messer, who has YouTube channel, and all of these courses are on YouTube as well, so they are literally for free. And that's why I said there's abundance of information of how you can guys prepare for these courses, and there's plenty of information that can be accessed for little cost or no cost at all. Now, the question that comes normally with people, and they say, should we pass an exam or not? It really depends on your career trajectory and how you're going to go about it. The junior market is very saturated, and there's a lot of people who trying to break into cybersecurity. And sometimes people can consider some of the IT courses, such as system administrator or help desk, IT support. That could be a great pathway into cybersecurity. Now, depending on the route that you're planning to take, exam might be helpful, but that's not necessarily a requirement. I wouldn't say you must pass an exam. If you want to, and you want to validate your knowledge that you have learned, yes, by all means. But that obviously adds to the cost. So it will be gauging depending on your experience and your path that you're thinking of taking. Exams is not necessarily, but if you want to, yes, by all means. Same as, and I always say, any CompTIA course that you will do, especially if you go down the Udemy route, there is amazing material in there. So there is each each domain of the course of CompTIA A+. You can find both courses on Udemy. And what great is there, both Mike Myers and Jason Dion, they have an amazing practice exam material in there as well. So I always say to people, watch the video courses, take notes, and once you're ready, take the practice exams. Once you are consistently averaging 85% plus, you're ready to take an exam. But I want to differentiate one thing, and that is key. I often see juniors in the industry, they study, they try and memorize all of the material to pass the exam. Your goal is in learning and education, especially working towards the career in cybersecurity, is not to study to pass the exams. You have to understand and gain the knowledge. The goal is to understand the concepts in the material. The goal is to learn how systems and operating how hardware systems and operating systems operate between each other. Really understand the material. So my always suggestion is to people, get your partner, your brother, your sister, anyone in your family, the concepts that you are learning, try and explain those concepts to someone who doesn't know anything about technology. Once you get to the point that you can explain something to someone who has no knowledge about technology, I classify that you have gained enough knowledge. Because once you can explain and once you can become a teacher, you have to gain significant amount of knowledge in that topic to explain it to someone who has no clue about that topic. So that's how I would suggest you take this path. Once you gain the fundamentals about hardware and the software and operating systems, the next key point in my journey is learning network fundamentals. And that's the key. I think, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of people that bypass the fundamentals and networking knowledge and jump straight into security specific courses. And that can be really hard once you join the industry, because you will be lacking some of the understanding of, what is the normal networking protocol used in specific scenarios. So a great way to address the knowledge gap in networking fundamentals is a CompTIA Network Plus course. Same pathway. You can find the courses on Udemy by both Jason Dion and Mike Myers. The same course by Professor Messer on YouTube as well. So Professor Messer has a YouTube course on CompTIA Network Plus. Both great courses. Because you remember, once you get into the industry, or once you start gaining the first interviews, that's where a lot of people trip up, because you have to intimately know what's the difference between TCP and UDP. They will ask, what traffic is on what particular OSI layer, what specific threats or attacks can happen in different OSI layers. So you have to learn these concepts quite well to be able to explain it to someone, to be able to understand how different attack vectors happen. You see the picture of the bottom as well explains how DNS or domain networking system works as well, because you have to understand what happens under the hood in the system to be able to detect threats, to be able to detect anomalies, to be able to detect variances from the normal network traffic. It's also key, when we start working with things like firewalls and all kind of implementations, you need to understand what's a subnet mask, how many addresses are in specific subnet mask, when we do deployments, how many IP addresses we need to reserve in specific instances. So all of that knowledge can be gained in Network Plus, is part of those building blocks in your knowledge, preparing for the move into the amazing career that cybersecurity is. As I said, there is amazing community. There's so many people that are willing to help you on your path, but you have to put in the groundworks to learn the fundamentals. So when you're watching those videos, take notes, adapt to how you are best at taking that material in. Some people don't like watching videos. You can read, there is equivalent books for each course. Take notes and build a mental picture. Try and really understand how each specific networking protocol, how networking concept works in real life, because that will really tremendously going to benefit you in your journey into cybersecurity. So that's the first sort of few steps we took. We covered the hardware, we covered the software, we covered networking fundamentals, and only then we start moving into actual security specific courses. So my goal is, once we start moving into security specific courses, the trailblazer, as you can see, and you probably will notice that once you start searching for cybersecurity specific roles, CompTIA Security Plus is mentioned probably in 90% of certificate job roles are in the industry out there for any junior specific cybersecurity roles. So again, the same course from Udemy is done by Jason Dion and Mike Myers. So each of the courses are brilliant, and both of the tutors deliver the material perfectly. You got the same course as well by Professor Messer on YouTube. But that is where you're going to start to actually building on those skills. We go past the learning just the theory and actually trying to leverage some of the hands-on skills that we will need in our journey. So we have, I mentioned a few playgrounds on here. So things like Try Hack Me. It's relatively cheap. I think it's around £8 or £9 British pounds, which is equivalent to about, I think, $12-13 a month. You can sign up to Try Hack Me. There is specific paths in there from junior cybersecurity, SOC, pen testing paths. There's various playgrounds and paths that you can explore and learn and actually get the hands-on experience on specific skills that we used in cybersecurity. There is also cyber defenders, range force, immersive labs. I think one of the ones that are a bit more on the expensive side. You got Hack the Box again, where it's an amazing platform where is various number of boxes where you can try and hack them, whether using their platform or using your own machine. Also, another new trailblazer breaking through the sort of the mold of training is Blue Team Labs Online. It's great platform sharing sort of key technical hands-on knowledge that you need. Also, I've always been a learner that likes to play with things and likes to touch things. That I think that's how you absorb the knowledge the best. So home lab setup, I think you can do this relatively cheap, and there's plenty of write-ups that you can search around Google and around various Medium articles. So you can buy a cheap laptop. I'm sure you can get a laptop for a couple of £100, couple of $100, and start leveraging virtualization. So you can download something like VirtualBox, and you can set up various virtual machines on and then build your internal network, and then you can practice. You can leverage things like various Linux distros. We have distros that are dedicated for penetration testing. There are distros that are dedicated for defensive side, like Security Onion. We have Kali Linux that is dedicated for penetration testing. So you can create those machines on VirtualBox, and you can play with all the different tools that come out of the box. Once you install Kali Linux, there's about 120 different penetration testing tools. If you install Security Onion, there's various defensive tools in there. Anything ranging from intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention systems, firewalls. We can start to actually test different threat scenarios, different setups. We can actually imitate some of the security operations center environment. You can also create cybersecurity projects to showcase your skills. So I always say to people, when you are junior and you're working towards career in cybersecurity, it can be daunting. It can be imposter syndrome can, set in. But don't forget, there's many, many, many people who are in the same path. So the earlier you leverage things like LinkedIn, GitHub, and start writing your blogs on Medium, the better you're going to be. Because there's one thing to play around with these hands-on playgrounds, hands-on tools and labs, But there's another thing to actually explain to people how you achieve that, showcasing your skills. You start building your network, start building your LinkedIn community. There's plenty of people who will be on the same path. They will be working on a similar tools or similar playgrounds, but they might not be aware of what you're working on. So you never know who you're going to help on their path. So it's tremendous, community on LinkedIn that you can share your passion with, share your goals, share your aspirations, and share what you're working on. You never know, as I say, you might help someone on their path. It is always great to get, feedback, get help, get support, answer questions. The earlier you start building the network, the bigger network you're going to have of support and help and, knowledge bank that you can leverage in your path into cybersecurity. There's also some great project that you can be part of. I share with my mentees, for example, once you start building and then getting through some of these certification programs, building those skills, that knowledge, you can start, getting some more experienced projects to, once you're ready to start applying for roles, you can do something like to leverage your skills, such as, store your CV as a static web page. If you just search that on Google, there's many of write-ups of how to achieve that, and especially we can leverage things like AWS and GCP. They allow to to get $100 of credit to play around with different machines and different setup, and things like storing your CV as a static web page. I think it costs like something like $10-20 a month, which can be really cost effective to showcase your skills and impress people during the interview stages. So yeah, that's where you can start to really ramping up your skills. But the key point I want to mention as well, there's one thing sharing your passion and working and starting that journey, but you have to be aware of your mental health. Sometimes people bend the rules so much that they, you have to maintain the passion for the role and for the journey you're undertaking. So always leverage, don't overdo the training, making sure that you keep that passion alive. So spend as much time as you can, but when you think it's becoming an overwhelming, step away from it, go outside, get some fresh air, leave the studying for a day or two. So making sure you're keeping that passion fresh and alive so you can tackle the problems the following day. So I always get asked and people always get confusing what career path to take and what's the best role. How they see obviously these careers that people have, or people seeing the movies about penetration testing and hacking and thinking that penetration testing is the sexiest career and that's where they want to start in. Yes, by all means, guys, but I always try to be pragmatic and realistic. So as you can see, there's various roles. We have cybersecurity SOC analyst, so security operations center analyst. Security operations center is essentially it's a heartbeat of security operations in the security sort of defensive mindset. So there is various roles starting at probably level 1 analyst that you can leverage. There's obviously you have penetration tester, which is essentially a white hat hacker who tries and exploit various vulnerabilities or finds various vulnerabilities inside the systems for people, and organizations to be aware of and to be able to fix. We have a GRC, so governance, risk and compliance. So if you are prone to more documentation, you like creating policies, you love doing risk assessments, you might coming from that specific background. This might be a perfect path into a cybersecurity career. Then also we have security engineering and architecture, so that's highly intertwined two roles. So there's actually engineering is the ones that are building specific security tools. They are leveraging and fine tuning potential analytics, potential networking protocols, how we can best leverage the security in organization. Architecture is trying to build a bigger picture and how architecture fits into organization goals. I always say to people, architect is essentially a person who translates business goals into solutions. So your goal is to architect and build sort of a vision of where security is going for the organization. Then we have DevSecOps. So DevSecOps is essentially it's a word that's split between development, security, and operations. Or you have similar really roles in application security. So that's the roles that's focused on addressing application security vulnerabilities and flaws. We also have digital forensics and incident response roles. When incidents happens, there are teams that dedicated to incident response and those who actually try and triage the incidents, find out what happened, how intruders came into organization. And then we have digital forensics, obviously, who try and gather evidence for potential legal implications that might be there. Obviously, we have vulnerability management. Also, another big piece is identity and access management, especially as we move into the cloud. Access management is a key part of the security, because there's a lot of organizations that fail to implement identity and access management properly, and that's where a lot of breaches happen. So that's a brief sort of path that you can take. Why I wanted to talk about this, I always say to people, if you're embarking on a journey into cybersecurity, I like to talk about numbers. If you look at any of those roles and any of those career paths, it's great and amazing to have aspirations to go in any of the roles, and it's great if you can determine the path where you end up. But the problem is, normally people don't really understand what the role involves and whether they're going to like it before they end in there. And the other problem is that some of these roles are very rarely offer any paths for entry junior sort of talent. So my always goal is to suggest people start in the SOC. If you look now on LinkedIn or on any other platform and you research cybersecurity junior roles, the majority of the roles would be within SOC. Therefore, if we're talking about the numbers game, because there's more roles in a SOC and a junior level, there is a higher chance of you landing the role in the SOC. So I always say to people, tailor your path into the SOC. Because once you gain year or 2 years of experience, you can go through the SOC path from level 1 to level 2 or even the level 3. But essentially, SOC can be a grounding path to any of the following roles. Because SOC is essentially covers a vast majority of cyber defense operations. Once you get enough exposure in the SOC and you understand how the cybersecurity operates, how we solve various incidents, how these tools work in tandem to help us create defense in depth, then you can veer. You also don't forget, once you end up in a SOC, normally in the organization you'll have all other people that are in the different parts of cybersecurity. You might have DevSecOps people, security engineering that work together with SOC. You can leverage those people to learn the required skills from inside the organization to either move laterally into a different role, or once you believe you're ready, take your career to the next stage, potentially in the next company. It depends where you want to end up with. But I always say, build your career path starting in a SOC. That's the best training path that you're going to have, and I think it yields the highest chances of landing your first role. So that's my goal, and that's how I started my career, and I think that was the best move I did, because there's plenty of roles in a SOC and there is higher chance of you landing the role. Yes, there's a vast competition in any of the roles in starting in cybersecurity, and we'll address some of those in the second series. So some of the technical skills. So once we start building and once we've done the sort of the grounding level of security skills within within cybersecurity, sort of we've done security plus, how we can leverage up the exact technical skills that needed for that entry level SOC role. So normally in the SOC, your main working tool is going to be SIEM, so Security Incident and Event Management Platform, which are examples such as Splunk. You got Azure Sentinel, Greylog. You have Elastic that is open source, Rapid7, Insight IDR. So I mentioned there is course SC200. So there is Azure Cybersecurity Analyst course that teaches you a lot about Azure Sentinel. Splunk have equivalent courses, but essentially your aim is to get to grips and start learning some of the hands-on material, how these SIEMs operate. You don't need to cover many of them, because my experience shows pretty much that if you know one, you know all of them. But just understanding, for example, in Splunk, how we create queries, how we build analytics, how do various incidents show up, and how do we do incident investigation, that's a key skill to have in your SOC journey. The next tool that most organizations nowadays will leverage is EDR. So that is endpoint detection and response. So a tool, something most of you might know by now, is Microsoft Defender, or it's also known Defender for Endpoint, because they have now Defender for Cloud also. So the course that leverages that is MS500. So it's Microsoft Security Administrator course. Mind you, I'm mentioning some of these courses. You don't necessarily have to try and get all of the certificates under the sun to land your first role. But it's good to review the material. It's good to get to grips to some of these toolings, how they operate, why organizations need EDR tools, how they are implemented, how they are configured to make sure we get the best out of it. Also, most organizations will have some kind of tool in terms of email security. So they will have something like Mimecast. There is various other companies that do security tooling. So Mimecast has a education academy, and it has specific courses about email security. So again, spending some time to understanding how these tools are configured, how they operate, how we can potentially reduce, because essentially this reduces the phishing and email, any sort of email attacks that organizations will most likely leverage. Then you have another avenue that most organizations will have to explore and go into, is vulnerability management. So you have tools like Sophos, Tenable, various scanners, but the one thing that you normally will be able to get to grips with is OpenVAS. OpenVAS is an open source tool that scans vulnerabilities. So you can download it on your machine, and you can scan your machine and find vulnerabilities. So you can get to play and see how vulnerability management tool operates, how to set up a scan, how does a report look like. It gives you a flavor of what you would be working inside the organization. And then obviously, lastly but not least, you got web application scanners. You got obviously things like on Linux, you can find things like Nikto, W3F. You got Burp Suite, which is a cool tool that lets you run various automated scans. It lets you test various web applications. And then also there's a great project called Juice Shop. So Juice Shop is a on purpose vulnerable application that you can try and exploit and learn how cross-site scripting works, how we do SQL injection attacks. It's a perfect playground to learn and better understand how these vulnerabilities are exploited, how to fix them. It will be a great benefit, and it's something to add on your CV, or something to write a blog, or something to share with your network about how you standing out from the crowd, how you leveraging those tools. The one thing I always want to mention, it's great to have those skills and it's great to work on these, but the differentiator factor will be your aptitude and willingness to learn. How you can showcase how you can stand out from the crowd. And these are just some of the side projects, some of the skills that you can leverage to become better and gain that first role in SOC. I mentioned there's a few ways that we can potentially develop our careers. There's a few different ways how we can learn about things. I'm an avid reader, and I think these only are some of the books that paved a tremendous path in my journey into cybersecurity and how they changed my mindset. There is a amazing CISO, Greg Van der Gast, who wrote a book about rethinking InfoSec and trying to break the molds about how industry operates, how he's a real trailblazer about addressing fundamentals, how some organizations trying to tackle cybersecurity problems without addressing the fundamentals. So this book can add a tremendous amount of knowledge. Then you have the amazing book about the Phoenix Project, and it talks about IT operations. It talks about DevOps practices. Again, it's an amazing book about the real journey that one company went, how to optimize their development and operations into unison and reap the benefits of it. Another amazing book, Cliff Stoll's The Cuckoo's Egg. Really great book that depicts where the actual hacking started. It talks about, I think it's 1985, about the person that worked in an organization and how they tracked through printers, how hackers from Germany and Eastern Europe tried to penetrate American military and all kinds of networks. It's really an amazing story about how actually hacking started. So it's an amazing book. Then you have social engineering, the science of human hacking. So we always think and hear about potential attacks on humans and how social engineering attacks can divulge personal information. So it's an amazing book that talks about how humans think, how they interact, how they trying to be helpful, and why usually social engineering attacks work. It's an amazing book. If you have time, please read it. And then last but not least, intelligence-driven incident response. So again, it talks about various practices about how we can get better understanding into how to do incident response, how to leverage intelligence in our incident response practices, how to better respond to incidents, how to build playbooks. Amazing book, and that's just some of the books. I always say, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll try and provide any more books if you want extra reading. If you have any questions about something that I've spoke so far, so always reach out. Last but not least, I always tell to people, yes, technical skills are very important, and they will be a tremendous advantage in your cybersecurity career. But don't forget, cybersecurity does not work in silo. It has to work in unison with the business. And you will need some soft skills. I always give example to my mentees. You can have a really amazing and great idea, great technical implementation idea, but unless you can explain that to stakeholders, unless you can get a buy-in from other people, that idea might never reach a fruition. It might never reach a day of light. So you have to learn all of those skills, how to time manage, how to, your emotional intelligence. Cybersecurity is probably the one area in any industry that continuous learning and adaptability is very important, because threat actors are not sleeping. They are advancing their skills day in and day out, and we can't get behind. Collaboration and teamwork is very important. Cybersecurity, we normally are a team that tries to rebuke all of the threat actors. So we have to operate with collaboration and teamwork. We have to embed into various business processes, and we have to try and address security in all of the business, whether it's finance, whether it's HR. We have to secure and help to secure any of the systems that business might use, any of the processes. You have to make sure that we build usable security policies that addresses security posture for the organization. You have to have a resilience and curiosity, coaching mindset to share your ideas with all of your people. Project management, how do we manage specific projects within cybersecurity? We might have this great idea that we're going to implement this specific tool, but we have to create a project and manage how we're going to do the implementation, creativity, and critical thinking and problem solving. These are just some of the skills that might be, provide tremendous help in your career. The reason why I'm mentioning this, it depends on what career path you're coming from, or where previous, role that you had. Normally, you bring a lot of transferable skills into cybersecurity. Some of these skills, whether you come from, whether it's teaching, whether you come from any industry whatsoever, you might have leveraged some of those skills in your previous careers, and you can translate that into cybersecurity. And then we'll talk in, I guess I can showcase the next video. So we will talk about, I provided sort of a landscape and education path. Once you think and you are ready to take on, applying for roles, that's going to be a whole another path, how we can expand your LinkedIn network to make sure that we reach as many hiring managers, as many, like-minded professionals. Because I always say to people, sometimes you see a junior role, it has 2, 3, 4, 500 applicants. It's very hard to stand out. But what if you know someone in the company? You can get a reference, you can get a referral, and your CV goes directly to the hiring manager. How do we update our CV? We just spoke about transferable skills, but how we can translate some of the tasks and some of the skills and some of the experiences that we might have that translate into cybersecurity. That's a key point, and we'll address that in the next video. How to also prepare for the interview, what kind of questions the interviewee might ask you, how to apply to roles, how to stand out from the crowd, and much more. So these are the kind of the key elements that we're going to address in the next video. Hopefully you guys found it useful. Please, if you like my content, subscribe to my channel so you can see all the next videos coming about. And as I always say, comment, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Give me any suggestions for any future videos or anything that I missed or anything else I can expel from this video series about breaking into cybersecurity.